by telling them this about, like, when we get on that last plot, kind of like where I was talking about, okay, this is an ongoing trial. We'll see more things in the summertime when it dries out about advantages, disadvantages. You might say, as part of this trial, I'm going to be collecting clipping yields and analyzing them for nutrient analysis. So we might tell them more about what you're going to collect on as time passes. And I'll try to prompt you to do that.
That's right.
All right, y'all ready? Closer together. There you go. That's thank you. 3, 2, 1.
I'm Mike Goatley, Extension Turfgrass Specialist at Virginia Tech. I'm in the Department of Crop, Soil, and Environmental Sciences, and we're at a research site just outside of Lynchburg, Virginia, in which we are evaluating the value of compost added as a soil amendment and establishment of cool season grasses in the spring. This is a joint project. We've got some faculty working, leading this project. Dr. Greg Evanilo, who's also in Crop, Soil, and Environmental Sciences, Dr. Rory McGuire, and this is Shay Donovan. Shay is a master's student. This is actually part of her research project as a graduate student at Virginia Tech, and she's going to walk us through, and I'm going to try to prompt her to tell us a little bit more about what's going on with this project. We're looking at compost because we feel that compost has got tremendous value as a soil amendment that can help us reduce chemical inputs and water inputs that's required to grow grasses in Virginia. What we've done is we've planted back on March the 23rd a cool seasons mixture that's common to this area. It's got Kentucky bluegrass, tall fescue, and perennial ryegrass in it. And you're going to be able to see the treatment differences that involve the compost applications here. Shay, tell us about this first plot, because I know we're standing in a control right now. Tell our audience what we're seeing here.
Okay, this first plot we call a control because we didn't put any of the same compost treatments on this one as we did in the other one. So this treatment basically consists of nothing but the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium requirements that were given to us from soil testing, okay? The only other thing that we've done to this plot besides put down those fertilizers is we put seed down on the top of this plot.
And these plots were used with a nice piece of equipment called an aerator, which has a vibrating solid tine with a seed box that works the seed in. So it's a great way to plant grass, especially in a soil that's this low of quality, because later on in the summer, today's date is actually April 17th, so we're about 4 weeks since we seeded this. This is going to be hard pan material out here. And again, this is a work in progress, but in 4 weeks, we're going to show you some pretty neat differences. So you get a look at what we've got here in our standard control plot, which is chemical fertilizers, 4 weeks after planting, according to soil test recommendations, and grass is just now starting to come up. So Shay, let's go to the next plot and see what we've got to show here.
This plot here is 1 inch of compost that's been incorporated into the soil.
Was there any chemical fertilizer
No,
applied?
we did not apply any chemical fertilizers to this one, so it's just compost and seed.
Okay. Again, look at the establishment differences here just from incorporating 1 inch of compost pre-plant. No fertilizers. We did know, what's in the compost. And again, compost has nutrient value, typically in the neighborhood of about 2% nitrogen, maybe 2% phosphorus. But everything here has essentially got the same amount of nutrients in the plots, but no supplemental chemical fertilizers applied in this treatment. Okay, let's go to plot number 3. Which one is this one, Shay?
When we come into this plot, we see that there is more compost. What this actually is 2 inches of compost that's been incorporated into the soil. So essentially what we've done, as compared to the last plot that we just saw, was we increased the organic matter. Because one of the things we talked about with this site is it's very nutrient-poor soil. So trying to establish this fescue, it's very important that we increase the amount of organic matter. And again, we have not applied any fertilizers to this treatment, just compost.
Okay, and you still see the black on the surface, and obviously the difference between the rates that are out here. With the machine that we're using, the aerator, it's not a tiller. So we actually use aerators in standard lawn maintenance in terms of aerating the lawns. It vibrates through and it kind of mixes it into, but it doesn't traditionally till like this. So that's why we still see some material on top. But what you see is a pretty significant difference in establishment. That's probably as much as anything coming from the temperature that the compost is providing, the increase in heat, because we've had plenty of rain since this trial went in. And even today, we're dry enough to walk on out here, but this soil has plenty of moisture to support germination. Let's go to plot number 4. Which one is this?
Okay, so over on this plot, what we've done is we've actually just applied 1 inch of compost to the surface. We did not incorporate it, and then we put the seed right on top of the compost.
Okay, so this was actually kind of this is a part of Shay's research has also been working in highway vegetation establishment. And we're on it's a slight slope site here, but this would be more like a home lawn type of establishment. Shay, I think in some of your other work, what you've been attempting to do would be to see, can we use a compost application with seed applied to it to see if we can establish grass. Tell me a little bit about the pros and cons of this approach, because again, it'd be nice if I didn't have to incorporate, but what's good or bad about this type of effort?
Well, we can see some of the obvious differences between incorporating and surface applied. Between these two plots, for instance, we see a lot more establishment on this one, or I'm sorry, on the past
on this
one
over here,
where we incorporated, as opposed to we see much less vegetation here where we surface applied it. One of the other aspects of my work deals with erosion control. Here you can see there's real erosion going almost straight down the plot and all along the sides. The plot behind me is another surface applied, but what I'm trying to point out here is this amount of erosion that's going on this 1 inch surface applied is significant as compared to, you don't see much erosion going on in the incorporated. Now, we've done runoff studies back at Virginia Tech on a smaller scale, so not quite on a field scale, and we've seen that there are significant differences between the amount of sediment and the amount of nutrients that come off surface applied compost as opposed to incorporated. So that's a huge benefit for incorporating compost, is that there's less sediment and less nutrient losses than there is when you surface apply it.
Okay. Speaking of, you just introduced this last treatment, so this was compost was applied, seed over top, no incorporation whatsoever. What's different about this one? Because I still see compost, but I know this was a little bit different setup.
Okay, so what we did was we actually applied the seed on this one, and then on top of that we applied 1/4 inch of compost, so just a very light layer, enough to cover the seed in this one. So
okay, so this one actually had fertilizer, seed,
yes,
incorporated.
This one actually had fertilizer too.
Okay, so the compost in this case is basically serving as a blanket.
Right.
Okay, 1/4 inch depth. And again,
right.
This was the one, we just came down to look at these plots this morning. This is one of the ones that just quickly grabbed my attention, because this would be a quite cost-effective treatment, just to use as little as 1/4 inch of compost as a blanket. And it compares down, let's walk down to this one. Because these plots were split in half in order to take a look at the industry standard. Shay, tell the audience what the industry standard is in terms of how we tell people to try to manage erosion in establishments.
The industry standard is we put down the seed and we basically put down straw mats on top of it. We stapled them down to keep them in place, and we just removed these today. So those mats have been sitting on here for about 4 weeks now. So this is what it looks like after 4 weeks when we remove that straw mat.
Yep.
Now we also applied fertilizer for this treatment as well.
So we've still got pretty good establishment here, but what you gain in terms of using the compost blanket is obviously in labor and material, in that it took some effort to get these products off here. In some cases you would actually leave them, but for a lawn setting you wouldn't want to have when you're out walking with the straw mat that's out there. It's got the plastic interweave on there. We've got good establishment going on, but again, side by side we have one in which just a light blanket of compost was applied versus the expense and the labor to install and remove the straw mat here. I think this one looks pretty good. Now, time is going to tell long-term success of this project. Shay's going to be collecting quite a bit of data. What are the type of data you're going to be collecting as the summer progresses?
We'll definitely come out here and we'll estimate the amount of percentage cover that we have. We'll look at species diversity. We'll compare how much turf grass we have as compared to weeds. We'll also do some tissue analysis, a little bit of nitrogen. We're also doing some stuff in the future, possibly about water infiltration, water release curves, and a lot of work that we'll be doing in the greenhouse, possibly nitrogen mineralization rates,
okay,
and seed depths within the compost.
Good. So this project will continue through the summer, because we know that summer temperatures are going to rise, drought's going to hit us, and again, what might look good now might not look so good later on. That's what we've got to find out. But part of this, the goal is to understand how do these different compost treatments, what do we see when it gets to be August in Lynchburg? And I'm sure we'll be back down at this site showing you the benefits, the pros and cons of compost applications for lawn establishment later on this year.